What took you so long to get here?
I was busy trying to decrypt your texts.
I told you exactly where to meet me.
It was hard to figure out what you were trying to say.
Why was it?
You used so much slang and abbreviated text. A few years ago, that wouldn't have been a thing. Can you imagine if we spoke like that in person?
No, now that you mention it, it's a very interesting question. Why don't we ask someone that knows a little bit more about language?
Like who?
Maybe a professor?
How about a university librarian?
That's a really good idea. Do you know one?
I do actually. We could ring them, see if they're interested in talking to us.
Sure, when are they next available? Hey there, did you sort it all out?
Yeah, we're gonna go talk to them tomorrow.
Awesome. Whilst Otti is doing this interview, let's see what I'm up to. Out of technology and books, which one do you prefer?
Books.
Technology.
Technology.
Books by far.
Technology.
I prefer technology, but right now I'm reading a book about technology.
Why do you prefer that one?
They never die on me. My phone's always dead. And I guess I can see them better than my phone screen when it's like really sunny and I want to go outside.
Better, because I like it more, because I've grown up with it, because books are boring in my eyes.
I guess it's an escape away from technology. It means nobody can really message you and stuff. You can just read a book. It's nice having it in your hand rather than online.
It's more versatile. With a book, all you can really do is read it and read it some more. Whereas with technology, you can do all sorts of different things. You can message people, you can read stuff, you can play games online, do all sorts of crazy things that you can't do with a book.
Because everything is available. You can search anything online, everything is literally at your fingertips.
Because when you're outside and it's windy, phones don't do this. But right now, I fancy reading a good book.
Meanwhile,
Hello, you're all right. Do you want to come and sit down? So I'm Paula. I've worked in the library for about the past 10 years, and obviously being in the library I've seen loads of advancement in the technology, and just listening to the students speak I've already noticed a change in how students are speaking today.
Do you think that the change in modern day language is due to technology?
I think that language has always changed over time, even back from like when Shakespeare first started writing books and he changed language completely. But I think definitely now technology's had a massive impact on the way that we speak, the way that we write, and the way that we correspond with each other. For instance, words now have a dual meaning that didn't used to, such as cloud, which can either mean the white fluffy things in the sky, but can also mean somewhere that you store data on photos online. I think that language these days is a lot shorter, a lot more casual. I think that there's definitely a lot of things like lol that will stay in the English language, and there's words like googling and selfie, which are now in the Collins English Dictionary and the Oxford Dictionary, which weren't in like 10 years ago. And that's directly come from, online. But then there's things like original text speak, which comes from when you could only use like 40 characters on a text, and it's like mate with the number 8, or later with 8. I think they'll eventually fade out again because now we've got QWERTY keyboards and smartphones.
How do you think technology has changed the way that we communicate with one another?
As I said before, I think definitely by email. Obviously everybody emails now. I don't think many people actually use the postal system. It's made things like moving house a lot quicker. Things online like live chat windows means that we correspond with people a lot quicker rather than waiting hours on the phone or having to wait for letters to come. Say back in the early 90s, if you was going out, you had to make firm plans, you had to meet somewhere. Whereas now you can just text when you're on your way, you can change where you're meeting. It's a lot easier to do that. My sister-in-law lives in Dubai and we'll FaceTime her, which is something that we wouldn't have been able to do before, so we can stay in touch a lot easier. And it means my niece, who only sees her like once a year, actually knows her when she comes over rather than her being a complete stranger. So it's good. It's good that nowadays we can correspond a lot quicker, we can make it a lot more personal so we actually get to know people.
Do you prefer technology or do you prefer books? What makes you feel that way?
When I'm studying, I prefer to use a physical book and write notes on paper. So for instance, at the moment I'm doing a teaching exam and I have the physical book for that. I was given the choice of do I want an e-book or a physical book, and I chose the physical book. If it comes to something like recreational time, I'll always just choose to go online. I'll never buy a newspaper. I'll always read the news headlines online. And if I'm looking for some quick information, something like dates or where something is, I'd just go online straight away and use Google or Wikipedia to find out, rather than, for instance, when I was at school, if you wanted to find something out, you had to go and get an encyclopedia and troll through it. So everybody pretty much gave exactly the same answer. And they were always quite concise and short, whereas now you can get a lot more in-depth answers by going online. So it really, like I say, it really depends. If it's for me personally studying, I'm going to use a book. But if it's for maybe finding out information, if it's for just browsing casually, I'm not going to buy a magazine or a paper, I'm going to go online and use that instead.
Do you think that the way we talk has changed because of the use of phones? If so, why is that?
Yes, it has definitely. I think we talk to each other a lot less than we used to, because people will text or message each other instead. We'll also talk a lot less when we're in the same room. You'll use words now as friended, as in to friend somebody on Facebook, which that wasn't a word that you used, and you actually hear people say lol rather than laughing sometimes. Generally, everybody's getting more casual with each other. So for instance, if you get an email or a text, like if you're selling something and somebody messages you, even though you don't know them, they'll probably put kisses on the end of the thing, which is not something that you'd ever get before. And I think things at the end of letters like yours sincerely and yours faithfully are finally going to be faded out because they're too formal, even for like an email. Even in business purposes, most time you'll find people put best regards at most. Yeah, and sort of when you're in your lounge at night with your family, you'll find yourself not actually speaking to them, but looking for encounters online and talking to people that way. So I think it's made us a lot quieter with each other, but we've now got much more of a text dialogue with people.
Is there any point in history, such as the book burnings, which you think has changed the history of books and technology?
I think a massive time in history was in the mid-90s. Before the mid-90s we had unreliable internet. Email was only for some select businesses. Nobody had mobile phones. I first got a mobile phone in 1995 and I was the only person with one, so I couldn't text anybody or talk to anybody that way. You know, I could just phone somebody on a landline, play Snake. But other than that, I think definitely the mid-90s was a pivotal point when all of a sudden, if you wanted to look at something online, it didn't take ages for it to download, and it just became a whole lot faster. I think by the early 2000s, with the introduction of things like Facebook, and then the mid-2000s, Twitter, and things like that, that completely changed everything. And I think it's probably one of the most important things to have happened in history, like the technological advancement of maybe the past 20 years, and made better links all around the world that just wouldn't have been possible before.
So, what did we find on this adventure?
From our findings, we decided that the argument of which is better is entirely down to personal opinion, but it is clear that there is a battle of technology versus language, as one directly impacts the other. Some people prefer to communicate in person and enjoy learning information through the physical format of books. Others, however, love the freedom that is given to them through the access to the internet, technology, and use it as their main source of communication through social media platforms, and will gather information through search engines online.
Which you prefer is entirely up to you. What will you decide in the battle of technology versus language?
So even if I look at a timeline over the past 100 years of technology, starting with the phone and Alexander Graham Bell, the word hello before the telephone was invented was used to get somebody's attention. It wasn't used as a greeting. That'd be good day or good morning. And it wasn't until a book on how to use a telephone and telephone etiquette came out that hello was in there as a greeting and has been adopting ever since. The same with the radio a few years later, that obviously brought about the word wireless. In fact, if you really jump forward to iPods and things like that, it's all about downloads. If you look at television, the way technology and television has changed language is massive. So it started with the TV in the corner of the room in a big wooden box where people would only have it on for a couple of hours a day. And then you had words like remote control that came into it, and miniseries and soap operas, all words that have just come out because of the television. And now we're in a really modern society where there's things like Netflix, which is commonly used, binge watching's in the dictionary now. That's something that's only been happening for maybe the past 5 years properly. And then if you go onto phones, they're probably the thing that's changed language definitely the most. In the mid-90s, when phones first came out and you didn't have many characters to say things, that's when you got single letters like an R and a U for are you, and a THX for thanks. That's changing more now back to regular speak, because obviously you can just use full words now with predictive text.